All right, no time to waste. Let's get right into it. Which version of Link is actually the coolest? Not the strongest, not the smartest, not even the one with the craziest feats. Skyward Sword, Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, all leading up to what I think is the coolest version of Link ever. Now, before anyone starts typing a full paragraph essay in the comments explaining why this list is wrong, yes, I already know this is completely subjective. Everybody grew up with a different Zelda game, and that changes everything in ways people don't even realize. And a lot of people didn't even touch Zelda seriously until Breath of the Wild completely changed what an open-world game even looks like in 2017. This is purely about aura, starting with Skyward Sword Link. Since Skyward Sword sits at the very beginning of the timeline, this is technically the original hero. Every Link that comes after him is basically built on top of his legacy, which already gives him a huge amount of importance in the overall story. What's interesting about him, though, is that he actually feels like a normal person before everything goes wrong. He isn't introduced as some ancient warrior or legendary chosen knight. He's just a student at the Knight Academy, living a simple life in the Sky Islands, training with a wooden sword, messing around with his Loftwing, and basically worrying about everyday problems compared to most other Links. He feels surprisingly grounded and human. When everything starts falling apart and Zelda disappears, it doesn't feel like he's fulfilling some grand prophecy he already knew about. It feels personal, like he's chasing someone he actually cares about instead of just following destiny because the story demands it. His relationship with Zelda is also one of the strongest in the entire franchise because it actually feels like two people who grew up together and understand each other. They joke, they support each other, and there's a real sense of connection that goes beyond just hero saves princess. And over the course of the game, you really see him develop into a capable swordsman. The combat in Skyward Sword is way more technical than people give it credit for, with directional sword swings and precise timing making every fight feel like a duel instead of a button mash. By the end of the game, he's clearly skilled, confident, and fully capable of holding his own. But even then, he still doesn't quite have that legendary, intimidating aura. He feels like someone being shaped into a hero rather than someone who already embodies that status. And honestly, this guy also goes through absolute misery the entire game. Every time you think you're about to reach the end, something else gets added. Another dungeon, another trial, another you're not done yet. It gets to the point where you start feeling like the villain is just emotionally draining him on purpose. So while he's a great foundation for the series, in terms of pure cool factor, Skyward Sword Link lands at a 6 out of 10. Next up is Wind Waker Link, one of my personal favorites, and this is probably one of the biggest underdogs on the entire list. At first glance, he does not look like someone destined to become a legendary hero. Big, expressive cartoon eyes, tiny proportions, bright colors, and a design that makes him look like he should be worrying about chores instead of saving the world. If you judged him purely off appearance, you would never expect him to stand in front of Ganondorf and actually survive the conversation. But that's exactly what makes him interesting. His story doesn't start with prophecy or destiny. It starts with his little sister getting kidnapped, and everything after that just spirals completely out of control. Imagine being a kid, sailing into a massive unknown sea with no real plan, just pure determination. Most people would have turned the boat around after the first giant enemy showed up. Wind Waker Link just adapts. He learns, he grows, he pushes forward even when nothing about his situation makes sense for someone his age. That's what makes him cool in a different way. Not intimidation, but stubborn courage. The kind of courage where fear exists, but it just doesn't matter. And somehow, despite everything, he ends up facing Ganondorf himself and actually winning. But in terms of heart, determination, and pure refusal to quit, he earns a solid 7 out of 10. Then we get to Ocarina of Time Link, and for a lot of people this isn't just a version of Link, this is Link. The green tunic, the Master Sword, the Hylian shield, Epona, and the title hero of Time are basically engraved into gaming history forever. This game didn't just define a character, it defined an entire era of gaming design. His journey is simple on paper, but iconic in execution. He starts as a child in Kokiri Forest, gets pulled into a massive conflict almost by accident, draws the Master Sword, and is instantly thrown 7 years into the future while the entire world falls apart around him. When he wakes up as an adult, everything has already gone wrong, and he's basically the only one who can fix it. What makes this version so cool isn't complexity or flashy abilities, it's the feeling of importance every moment carries. Riding across Hyrule Field on Epona, with that music playing, learning songs on the ocarina that actually change the world, exploring temples that feel mysterious and dangerous, and finally walking into Ganondorf's castle for the final confrontation. Every moment feels like history being made in real time. Even people who have never played Zelda can recognize this version instantly because his design is so clean and timeless. He doesn't need extra flair or modern redesigns. He just works. That's an 8.5 out of 10. Majora's Mask Link is interesting because it's technically the same character as Ocarina of Time, but he feels like he went through an entirely different life after that game ended. Instead of getting peace after saving a kingdom, he ends up lost in Termina, a world where the moon is actively falling from the sky and destroying everything in 3 days. And then it resets, over and over again. That alone already creates one of the most unique tones in the entire series. Everyone he meets is dealing with fear, regret, sadness, or acceptance of death. And Link is stuck in the middle of it all, carrying the knowledge that everything will reset again and again. That's what makes this version so different. You spend hours helping people, learning their routines, fixing their problems, and then the clock resets, and none of it technically mattered in the world's memory. But it still mattered to you. Then you add the transformation masks, which don't just change gameplay, but completely change identity. Each mask represents another life, another story, another existence that Link temporarily takes on. It makes him feel less like a single hero and more like someone carrying fragments of other people with him. This version of Link feels experienced in a way that's almost uncomfortable. Like he's seen too much for someone his age. He doesn't need to prove anything anymore. He already survived something most heroes wouldn't even understand. That's why Majora's Mask Link gets a 9 out of 10, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Link. Another one of my personal favorites. It's honestly just unfair when it comes to versatility. He wakes up after 100 years, immediately gets thrown into a ruined world, and within minutes is already fighting monsters with sticks like it's normal. A few hours later, he's parrying lasers from giant machines, climbing mountains that look impossible, and exploring a world that gives him almost no restrictions at all. Then Tears of the Kingdom takes that freedom and multiplies it by 10, letting players build absolutely anything they can imagine. At this point, Link isn't just a swordsman. He's an engineer, a climber, a survival expert, a cook, a fighter, and somehow also a walking experiment in physics abuse. He can fuse weapons, build machines, fly across the map, and still survive everything by eating 5 apples mid-fight like it's completely normal behavior. The creativity this version allows is insane, and that directly feeds into how powerful he feels. If versatility was the only category, this version would easily be number 1. That's a 9.5 out of 10. Finally, Twilight Princess Link. If aura was something you could actually measure, this version would completely break the scale. Everything about him feels heavier, darker, and more grounded. The design alone gives him a more mature presence, with chainmail under his tunic, sharper features, and a stance that makes him feel like he's already been through war before the story even begins. Even his idle animations look confident, like he's just waiting for something to challenge him. Then you add Wolf Link, which somehow doesn't make him feel gimmicky at all, but instead adds another layer to his character. The Twilight Realm, the hidden skills, horseback combat, and his ability to adapt between human and beast form all reinforce the idea that this is a hero who evolves with every situation. And then there's Midna, easily one of the best companions in the entire series, whose relationship with Link slowly develops from manipulation into genuine trust and emotional connection. By the end of the game, their bond actually hits harder than expected. This version of Link doesn't feel like someone chosen by accident. He feels like someone who could walk into any battlefield and immediately take control without saying a word. He doesn't need gimmicks. He doesn't need over-the-top abilities. He just has presence. And that's why Twilight Princess Link is, in my opinion, the coolest version of Link ever. Now, obviously, this whole ranking is subjective, and I totally get it if your list looks completely different. That's the fun of Zelda. Every version of Link brings something unique, whether it's tone, design, gameplay, or nostalgia. But for me, when it comes to aura, presence, style, and feeling like the ultimate legendary hero, Twilight Princess Link takes the crown every single time. Now I want to hear your ranking. Which version of Link is your personal favorite?